Hey everybody, welcome to the Terrain Studio. I'm your host, Shawn Morris. Today in the Terrain Studio, as a studio update, I thought I would put together a little bit of information regarding forces, common German units, and just some things to think about when you're putting together a small force, be it a 600 or 1500 or even a 1750 list. So I thought I'd look no further than the Forces book. This book here comes as a companion book to the hardback rulebook that you can get available on the Flames of War website or at your local gaming store. So if you haven't had a look at the Flames of War books at all, or any of the source books, I'll give you kind of a brief walkthrough here. Inside you're going to have some force organization charts, and they're usually sorted out based on the country. So for example, we're going to have a look at the German list here. In the Forces book, if you're just starting out, this is a really good place to start because they're kind of generic lists instead of the more, I don't know, really gimmicky lists or lists that are specific to a certain character or a certain battle. So for example, we're going to have a look at the Panzer Company here. So this is a Panzer Company known as an armor company. It's available in two types of skill ratings. You can have the here, which is a confident veteran, or the fearless veteran list. And if you look here, you'll have some point values, and they're sorted based on the rating. So for example, let's just say we're going to put together a small panzer force. A real common German tank is the Panzer IV-H. Let's say I was going to go ahead and put a command squad together of 2 tanks. That's 200 points. So go over here to the trusty calculator, and we'll punch in 200. Alright, next thing you notice on your force organization is that you have 2 blackened spots. These are mandatory requirements when making a list. All the rest are your options. So for our mandatory requirements, it says we need a Panzer platoon and a Panzer platoon, both available on page 35. So if you slide over to page 35, I apologize for the glare there, I'll try to minimize that. Here's page 35, and here is our Panzer choices. So we can have a Panzer IV-H platoon and a Panther A platoon. Seeing we went with a command platoon of Panzer H's, we're required to take at least 1 platoon of those. So we're going to take the minimum and take the 300 point platoon. That's for 3 tanks. The second platoon we're going to take is, we're going to go with, let's say 3 Panther A's for 640 points. So we have a look over here, punch that in. So we're looking at 300, and then we're looking at 640. So as you can see, for a very low model count, we're at 1140 points. And what that gives us is here 2 Panzer H command tanks, 3 Panzer H platoon, so that's platoon 1, and then I have 4 Panthers here, but let's just imagine we're just taking these 3 right here. So we'll take this one and we'll slide it aside. So for 3, 6, 8 tanks, we're at 1140 points. Your standard game being about the 1500 or 1750 level. The next thing I want to look at is a platoon of infantry. So if you look at the force organization right here, it tells us that we need to go to page 37 or page 41 for our options. So quickly turn to page 37. Here we have a pretty standard Panzer Grenadier platoon. These Grenadiers are in half tracks. And sticking with the SS option, the veteran, it's 260 points for the full platoon or 190 for the understrength. So let's say we're going to go with a full strength platoon at 260 points. Go over to our calculator, punch in 260. We're at 1400 points for those 3 platoons. And here's what the platoon will look like. So you have 6 MG stands with a command stand and 4 half tracks. And you have the option of adding a Panzerfaust there for 10 points. So if you're going to go ahead and do that, you just add your 10 points in, and you're at 1410. So now we have 2 tank platoons, and we have a Panzer Grenadier platoon. I strongly suggest when you're taking your platoons that you go with even numbers. So let's say, for example, some options we can look at. If it's a 1500 point list, one of the quick options to do would be to add a Recce platoon right here, some 8 rads. Okay, they're available for 80 points. So if we did that on our list, we add 80, and we're at 1490. So we're playing a 1500 point game. We're right on the money. Say for example you didn't want to go with the 8 rads and you wanted to go with let's say aircraft. Well, if you went with the aircraft option, you'd only have 3 platoons. There is something special you can do with the Germans, which I'll explain. So let's say we went with the Stukas right here. They're available for 100 points or up to 135 points if you went with limited. So let's say you went with a 100-point option. So we take away the 8 rads for 80 points. We take away our Panzerfaust, and we're at 14, and then we just add the planes for the even 100, and we're at 1500 on the dot. That gives us a Panzer Grenadier platoon, our HQ, Platoon 1, Platoon 2, and aircraft. Aircraft are a nice choice when you're using tanks because you're kind of an attack force. The only disadvantage is if you get too close, your aircraft become ineffective. So you got to weigh out your options of what you're looking for. Just some other common units that you may be able to use in your force organization. You're able to take Tiger tanks as a single platoon. They're 215 points in some examples, up to 240. You could go with a heavy machine gun platoon if you're going for a little more defensive list. That's seen here. Like I said, you can up the priority of your aircraft, a few more points. An option for your grenadiers is if you decide not to take them in half tracks and go trucks, it's a little bit cheaper. Your recce options, you can go with a little bit heavier upgunned to a Puma, perhaps, a few more points. Panthers, if you wanted to bulk out that platoon and go to 4 tanks, you're looking at 750 points. So you're really putting a lot of points in one basket, but it is a very strong platoon at that point. Another option as well is if you went with a Panther as your HQ, took a smaller platoon of Panthers, you'd have to go 3. You could then bulk out your Panzer IV platoon to 5 tanks or 4 tanks, a minimum of 3, but it's really the options are there. So really all I want to do is just kind of give you guys some ideas of what to think about. Maybe as a response to the video or in the comments below, you guys could maybe put together some small lists, or if you really were looking for a certain list out of a certain book and you wanted a hand with it, you guys can comment or PM and I can give you a hand with making some lists. So really Germans are my strength in terms of list making, but I've seen quite a few lists at tournaments, so maybe I can shed some light on some lists or some ideas that you're having. So that's just some common units there that I wanted to share with you guys, and if you guys like these kind of videos, maybe I can talk a little more specifically about actual lists that I've played or even some units that I haven't shown here. So hopefully that'll get your inspiration going, guys, and talk to you later. Cheers.